The name of that song is called On the Blind Side, which is a new single being released by my special guest today, Ray Bonneville. Ray, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Friday Afternoon Music Mix.
My pleasure, Greg. Very nice to be with you, and thanks for your interest in doing this.
Oh, I'm a big fan. Ever since we met, well, it's been about 6 years ago, I guess, when you were unfortunately now defunct venue in Bellingham, Washington called the Green
Yes,
Frog. And
yes.
it was such an intimate location and really enjoyed your show there. And I thought to myself, if I ever get the opportunity to have you on the show, I really wanted to do that. So I was so grateful you graciously accepted my
Oh,
invitation.
sure. Yeah.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about you and your music. I know that you grew up in originally from Quebec,
Yeah,
and
I'm a French Canadian. Yeah,
yeah, and moved to the United States at 12 years old, speaking only French.
that's right. Yeah, my folks said you have one summer to gather up a little bit of English to start, public school. So I did the best I could.
You got thrown right into it then.
Yeah.
That's great. And then I know that you have moved around even after Boston. Also, a stint in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, that was I was in the Marine Corps from '66 to '69, and I had already I had a little band before that when I was a teenager, and we played fraternity houses all over New England because we were too young to play in bars. So when I come out of the Marine Corps, I was pretty confused as to what I wanted to do, but it didn't take long for me to get my guitar and start. That's when I started playing harmonica, and I learned how to play it in a taxi cab that I was driving. When nobody was in the cab, I'd be blown on that thing.
And you're an excellent harmonica player.
Thank you.
I noticed you carry the device around your neck that allows you to play guitar and harmonica both at the
Yeah.
same time. And also, I understand you play piano as well.
Well, I used to play piano. I don't much play piano anymore, but that's the first thing I ever banged on was a piano. But I never took, I'm not a piano player really. Yeah.
Tell me, I understand also that you got a pilot's license at a short age too. We're doing bringing hunters and campers and that sort of thing into the wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah. In the late '70s or mid to late '70s, I realized that my GI Bill from being in the Marine Corps was about to expire in 2 years. And I didn't know really, I was afraid of flying at that time. And I don't know, I went to the airport in Boulder, Colorado, there where I was living, and I said, I'd like to take a lesson. And that was it. Within 2 years, I had a commercial license, instrument rated multi-engine. I had all the tickets I needed. That led to me flying in the bush in Quebec. I went up to Quebec in 1990 and flew that season up there in a Beaver float plane, and then I did another season after that at Air Tamarack, and that's where that was a pivotal moment, pivotal chapter because I got myself into some serious trouble during the moose hunting season. There's a blog on my website that the story is called Killing Fog. It tells the story of how I decided to hang up flying and just start writing songs. And that's that I wrote my first song subsequently after that. So yeah, that was a chapter in my life that I really, really loved. But I hung it up, after that incident because I didn't want to. I was a kind of a cocky pilot, and I really had no business feeling that way because it's just a very serious thing.
The I noticed that your new single, which we talked about before we went on air, is On the Blind Side, is one of three singles that's going to be released separately and then an album coming out. But I
Mhm.
noticed on your website, and by the way, I want to point out your wonderful website, which is raybonneville.com. And you do keep a blog on there that gives a lot of stories about your adventures, which are extremely interesting. I hope that our audience will take a look at that. But I
Yeah.
did notice that you had a picture on the single on the blind side of a float plane on
Well,
there.
yeah. This guy in Quebec wrote to me and said, "I read your story." He had read the Killing Fog story, and he sent that illustration of a beaver float plane just in the fog and near the wires. That's the tower, the Hydro-Quebec tower that I almost hit. We just liked his illustration and we used it just because it's what do like I don't know, like illustrations for songs. Anyway, that's what we used. So
Oh, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I loved it. I immediately knew that it referred to the story when I saw that. It was
yeah,
great.
but the Blind Side itself, the song on the Blind Side is a distillation of a song that I tried to write it for about 2 years, and it took me 2 years to render that down to 16 lines, and the 16 lines that are in the song, and I have a bone pile like that, discarded lyrics and things that I
Right.
don't use, and grooves and melodies and whatnot. On that particular song, it's over 50 pages, and it speaks to healing old wounds like that come from your childhood. So it's the story of somebody who's coming to terms with some early damage.
I understand. And,
Mhm.
and after you stopped piloting, then you spent what, close to 20 years all told as a studio musician before you went out on your own, didn't you?
No, the 20 years as a studio musician and a performer were between the ages of 20 and 40. Uh,
Ah,
I played constantly. Even when I was flying, I was playing. Like, for example, in New Orleans, I was playing all the clubs in town, but I was also a flight instructor at the Lakefront Airport. So I started writing songs and recording in my early 40s after I hung up the flying, but I already had more than 20 years experience playing all kinds of places, all kinds of clubs and joints and whatever, like.
you'd cut your chops long before you started out on your
Well, I
own.
had the vehicle of the guitar, that guitar groove and the harmonica that was well honed. So then I started, writing songs on top of that. So it was an education that I got without knowing. I didn't really know what was, this is all looking at it in retrospect. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing or why.
I understand.
Yeah.
How about we do a second song? And this is one of my faves from your album called Going by Feel. And this is Sabine River. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Yeah, go ahead.
She was leaned against the wall by an uptown market stall. She had the fire song in her eyes. You could tell she was alone, and it seemed a hard road. Yeah, she knew something about falling dominoes. Long gasoline on the road to New Orleans. The Santa Fe cuts the low sun on its way to Houston. Last calls fade away and gone, and the Sabine River flows on. She told me she was staying in the French Quarter over by Esplanade. Said she'd come down from up north after going around back and forth, looking for love, not knowing what it was she said. It's no surprise I was telling myself lies. Long gasoline on the road to New Orleans. calls. Santa Fe cuts the low-down sun on its way to Houston. The last calls fade away and gone, and the Sabine River flows on. In the picture on her bureau, she said, "That's my brother. We were very close. Lost his life being reckless the way young men do. Never stood a chance. Thought it was bulletproof. Low gasoline on the road to New Orleans. The Santa Fe cuts the low sun on its way to Houston. Last calls fade away and gone, and the Sabine River flows on. Santa Fe cuts the low-down sun on its way to Houston. Last calls fade away and gone, and the Sabine River flows on.
Can you also talk a little bit about your career, Ray? I know that for Gust of Wind CD, you won a Juno Award, which is equivalent to the Grammys in Canada. You've shared the stage with blues greats, Muddy Waters, B.B. King, Dr. John, J.J. Cale, just to name a few. And you've also guest on a lot of, like Mary Gauthier, Ray Wiley Hubbard, Gurf Morlix. You've even had your songs recorded by other people, like one of them I know I heard recorded by, gee, many Christmas, what is his name? From up in Maine originally. He lives in Austin,
Slade.
Texas. Yeah, Slade Cleaves. Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard,
Slade.
and he gave, I saw him at the Green Frog also, and he mentioned that song that he performed that night was yours.
Yeah. Yeah, Run Jolie Run is that's a story of I had a house in Arkansas on the White River, because there was excellent fly fishing there,
Uh-huh.
and I started to look around at the people that were around me, and they were pretty questionable, some of them, and I went to an auction, and I saw this guy, this really scary looking guy, and I said to myself, that guy's probably killed somebody. Anyway, I went home and I wrote that song about a woman who's trying to get away from a bad guy like that, and that's Run Jolie Run.
That's a great song. It really is. Let me point out my special guest is Ray Bonneville. His website is raybonneville.com. You can also see a selection of great songs on facebook.com. Also, facebook.com/Ray Bonneville Music. And then YouTube, just type in Ray Bonneville and you'll see some great YouTube videos that are on there as well. Can you give me a little idea of where things are headed now?
I have no idea.
That's great.
No, I toy with the idea of retiring, but I just realized that I don't know if I could. So I'm still playing. I'm still touring, albeit COVID has put the kibosh on quite a few shows. But I'm still writing songs and recording, so nothing has changed in that way. I'm probably going to do a few less grueling drives,
Yeah.
because it just is too taxing. I used to, be okay with driving, 12, 14 hours in one sitting. But these days, I only want to drive 4 or 5 hours. And if I have to play that night, even less, so
I understand. I
yeah.
understand. Do you still have your Sprinter van?
I don't know. I sold it to a friend of mine because when COVID hit, I was during the time I thought I was going to get off the road. And it's a little bit of a sore subject with me because I wish I hadn't sold it.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Now that things are starting to, well, look like they're going to turning around, but who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Ray's new song that is released on May the 10th is On the Blind Side, which is the first of 3 that will be released over time and then eventually a new album. You can see a lot of good things on his website at raybonneville.com, facebook.com/Ray Bonneville Music, and then, of course, some wonderful music that he does on his YouTube channel. I think that you're like one of those people, you're not going to fade out. You're just going to continue to record and play. And when the gigs are right, you'll be there.
Yeah. When the gigs are right, I'll be there. Right.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Ray, thank you so much for joining me
My
here today.
pleasure, Greg.
I can't tell you how great of an honor it is to have you on the show. I'd like to go out with one more of your songs, and this is one of my favorites. By the way, I want to mention your last album is terrific. I recommend it highly. It's called At King Electric. This is one of the songs from that is probably one of my favorite of your songs, called Waiting on the Night. Once again, thanks again so much. And if you ever get up to where you're in the Pacific Northwest again, come by the studio and I'll put you on the air live.
Absolutely will. Absolutely will. Thank you so much for having me on, Greg. I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you.